Jumping back into the action here, ahead of Monday Night Football, we got two games on tonight's schedule. Again, after a while that we haven't had two games on Monday Night Football. They are back. We got a doubleheader tonight, and we got round two of the Monday Night Football doubleheader, round two of this matchup in the NFC North between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings tonight. Part of that Monday Night Football doubleheader. This is the early game that's set to kick off at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC or ESPN Plus for those of you that are trying to watch the game. This is going to be the first one up, and the last game was a thrilling 30-27 victory for the Minnesota Vikings in Chicago in overtime, which was it had everything, right? That was part of the stretch of games where the Bears, I thought, could have won, had the opportunity to win all three, but unfortunately they lost all three. And that one was probably the closest one that they had an opportunity to win. And, we got this is the second rematch in the NFC North, right? The only two other teams to play each other for the second time has been the Packers and the Detroit Lions. And now this is the second time two NFC North teams are playing each other again, with the Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. And speaking of the Vikings first, they enter with an 11-2 record as the number 5 seed and on a 6-game winning streak. They are still trying to catch the Lions for the NFC North title. And going back to all the way into the beginning of this segment and how we talked about the Lions losing, not only was it important because the Eagles are now tied with them for the record, but it makes this game a lot more important because the Vikings are also 11-2. So now they head into this game knowing that they could have the same record as the Lions at 12-2 if they win tonight, and still have to play them one more time in Detroit, but they still got one more game going up against the Lions where they could steal the NFC North. And then we could really get crazy and talk about the Lions not even being a top 4 team in the playoffs if everything goes that way for the Vikings. But they already clinched a playoff spot as well, with the Seahawks losing, I believe, as well. So they're going to be in, but they have a real opportunity here to put a lot more pressure on the Lions and maybe even lose the whole division entirely if the Lions, stumble once again over the course of these next 3 weeks. But that's really what the Vikings are playing for. Still playing for a lot at this point in the year, despite their very dominant record. Whereas the Bears, on the other hand, unfortunately, they're at the complete opposite end of, the point at where most teams are still fighting for the playoffs. The Bears are on the complete opposite side, basically, because they're 4-9 right now, and they still are trying to break their losing streak. It's up to 7 games right now. And they just got their butts kicked by the 49ers, 38-13 in the first game after Matt Eberflus was fired. And it was weird because the defense was a bit off as well. For a team that I've been, pretty high on, the fact that their defense is the more reliable side of their team, I was pretty surprised that they gave up, that big of a, margin and just that many points in general overall. So that was a bit surprising, but hopefully their defensive coordinator now, Eric Washington, who's calling the plays on defense now since Matt Eberflus was fired, he can have a rebound game going up against the Vikings tonight. But it's definitely not going to be easy, but he has the opportunity regardless, so we'll see if he can improve. But the last time, what's funny about this game, and it brings up the running theme that we've had, on today's episode. We had the injuries and the fact that we're talking about the healthiest and most stacked teams in the NFC. There's no diversion from that, because in this game we got the Vikings, and even though last time, Justin Jefferson was held to 2 receptions for 27 yards, and you would think that anytime he's held to that the Vikings would probably lose, right? It was anything but that, because Jordan Addison last time went off for 8 receptions and 162 yards and a touchdown. And also, TJ Hawkinson added 7 receptions and 114 yards as well. So when arguably the best receiver in the NFL is really blanketed and isn't allowed to do anything, they still got a guy like Jordan Addison putting up insane numbers. Their tight end, Hawkinson, is also a great tight end, one of the best, one of my favorite in the NFL. So it's like a lose-lose situation in a way, like we mentioned with the Eagles, right? Where the Steelers did a good job of taking away Saquon Barkley, but A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith have monster games, and it's no different here. Justin Jefferson doesn't necessarily have his Justin Jefferson kind of game, but they got Aaron Jones, who goes over 100 yards and scores a touchdown. They got Jordan Addison, over 150 yards and a touchdown. TJ Hawkinson, over 100 yards and 7 receptions, right? It feels like it's too much, and everywhere you look, it feels like you're going to find one mismatch at least, right? You can't cover and match up perfectly, man for man, one-on-one, all throughout the field. It's just unlikely with some of these teams. So that was the story last time. But even so, the score was only a 3-point game, but we'll see how the Bears attack that now, knowing and hopefully learning from that last game, trying to limit everybody and not just Justin Jefferson so much. But there are some pretty big injuries going into this game. A couple for the Bears and really one important one for the Minnesota Vikings. For the Bears, their defensive tackle, Gervon Dexter, is going to be out tonight. Their other running back, Roschon Johnson, is also going to be out tonight. And Ryan Bates, their center, is also not going to be able to play tonight with a concussion, where the Minnesota Vikings are going to be missing really only one true, big piece that hasn't already been injured. That is going to be Stephon Gilmore, I believe. Yes, he is inactive for tonight. He was not able to recover from his hamstring injury, so the Vikings are going to be without their best cover corner in this game. And I know DeAndre Swift was potentially going to miss this game, but I don't see him as an inactive, so he is ready to go tonight. But Roschon Johnson, the other running back, is not going to be able to play as well. So those are the injuries. A big one for the Minnesota Vikings not having Stephon Gilmore, but it opens things up for Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze. So we'll see if they can take advantage of that. And for the matchups, I just wanted to kind of add something, kind of like what I'm looking for, what I'm hoping to see out of both teams. Instead of, just going over some other things, I just want to point out, going forward with these previews, just one goal I kind of want to see from each team going into these games. So for the Chicago Bears, what I want to see from them is their defense, picking up the slack from last game, right? Because you can't drop off on defense. Their defense is clearly the best part of their team, is the most reliable part. Yes, maybe one performance, could be all right, and that was the 49ers game, right? That was their one bad performance, but we can't have it stack up now. We can't have this team just drop off defensively now that Matt Eberflus is gone. I know there's only 2 games left after this, but, they're important. Obviously, you want to finish them off strong. You want to have a positive feeling going into the offseason and hopefully getting better after this. But their defense is what's kept them in games really the majority of the year, because the offense has been pretty hit or miss. So we need better production from them. We need them to get after the quarterback better and just not have so many just self-harming mistakes, right? Not so many communication errors, penalties, and things like that. Don't hurt yourself, because the other team is trying to do that to you anyway. So try to play as cleanly as possible, and I'm hoping to see the Bears defense kind of rebound from last game against the 49ers. And for the Vikings, what I want to see from them is just being able to finish drives. Finish drives with 6 points instead of 3 points, right? Don't settle for field goals as much. Because they're too good. They're way too talented to settle for field goal after field goal after field goal, right? They got too many weapons, like I pointed out before, to have that be their thing, right? They're way too good for that, and we kind of saw that efficiency in the early parts of games in the early portion of the season, right? They'd get out to these crazy leads, like the Giants, like the Packers game, and that's how they would win games. And then it kind of stalled out a little bit, like we saw against the Rams and in the first half of the Colts game. But it kind of looks like they're back a little bit to putting up big points and scoring touchdowns, like we saw in the fourth quarter yesterday, last week against the Falcons. So I want to see them, continue that, not just have it reserved for the fourth quarter, but start off, getting a touchdown or two early on in the game, then continuing that offensive pressure all throughout the game, not just in the fourth quarter or in the first quarter. Make it more consistent. That's what I'm hoping the Vikings kind of build on as we go into these games. And just quickly into the matchups here before we get into my prediction. One of the matchups I'm looking at is Aaron Jones going up against this defensive line. Aaron Jones had 106 yards last time, and this time around there's not going to be any Gervon Dexter, one of their defensive tackles, in the middle of their defensive line. So how much do the Vikings try to take advantage of that? How early do they try to establish that running game? And also, with Aaron Jones, not only that, but the pass rush, right? With no Gervon Dexter, are they going to be able to get to Sam Darnold? That's also going to be a huge thing in this game. And then the other one here, I just have the Vikings secondary going up against Chicago's, pass catching options, right? Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, and those guys. They're all very good. It's a very talented group. And last time, it was a very close game. I know DJ Moore had a big game. And Caleb threw for over 300 yards last time with Stephon Gilmore. Now, he's not going to be in there. So, can they take advantage of that? The secondary is definitely the weaker part of this Vikings defense because their pass rush is very good. Their linebackers are very good. But the secondary is a little bit vulnerable, I would say. So, with no Stephon Gilmore today and the options, I'm hoping to see the Bears take advantage of that because I think they have the advantage in that matchup, certainly, going into this game. But those are the matchups. And now in terms of my predictions, I'm still gonna go with the Vikings. The Vikings will win. I am hoping the Bears defense plays a little bit better, but even still, I just think they got too much. We saw yesterday with the Eagles. I keep referencing them because it's true. And the healthier you are, the more talented you are, and the more options you have, I think it's just very difficult to ask of that for a defense to stop them so often, especially if the offense for the Chicago Bears is also struggling and, punting or settling for 3 points. It's a big ask, and I think over the course of the game, your defense just gets tired, and that's natural to happen. So with the Vikings being at home and the fact that they're debuting those sick new all-white uniforms, they're not losing in those. So the Vikings are going to win. I just remembered that they're playing those uniforms, so there's no way they lose in those. Those are going to be looking sick tonight. So I'm going to go with the Vikings to win in their all-new white uniforms. And that won't be the last game we have on tonight. We still got one more Monday Night Football game to talk about. That is set to kick off at 8:30 p.m. on the national ESPN channel between the Falcons and the Las Vegas Raiders. So we're going to recap that and preview that, actually, when we return after this.